we're going to get started, and we've got 7 people that are joining us online right now. So that's really cool. And I'm going to say to those that are online, thanks for joining us. And this is my first time doing this. It's going to be, I just told the people here, it's going to be kind of clunky. And if you can just bear with us as we do this, that would be great. We are recording this for everybody, so you can get it online or hand it out to other people as you need. Normally what we do here is we introduce ourselves and where we're from. We're sitting right now in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I'm just gonna go around the room real quick with who you are, and then I'd like for you online, if you could, in the chat section here, if you wanna chat me where you're from, that would be great. So let's start with you.
Zeta Gray from Genesis Project here in Fort Collins.
Okay, awesome.
I'm Barb Myers. I go to Mill City Church, and I also do counseling in my home, Colorado Ministries.
Okay, awesome.
I'm Braden Lance, the director of Half-Step Ministries.
Okay.
I'm Charlie Sandberg, and I'm pastor at Faith Church.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. And we've got David Derry with Family Life in Northeast Ohio on right now. We've got Kelly Johns from Light of the Rockies. She's a counselor there. And that's all I can see. I know there's more people here. Oh, Melissa from Cruise Story Runners, Eric from the Town Church. Hey, Chris Bassett from Light of the Rockies just moved in. Great. So as you guys online, as you would like, let me know where you're from. That would be great. Thanks for doing that. Okay, well, the topic, Chris, I was just saying, this is our first time we're going to try to simulcast this.
Yeah.
We're going to see what that's like. So forgive us if it's a little clunky.
All right.
So the topic we're going to talk about today is CBD. You guys obviously have heard of it, right? How many signs did you pass on the way here today that advertise CBD? Like 2? Yeah, 2? Yeah. Well, for those that are online right now that are not in Colorado, obviously legalized marijuana here has opened the door to a whole bunch of other things. And I've got a lot of clients that talk to me about CBD oil and creams and all that. And as we were thinking about different topics of what we could cover for these Frontlines, I have a lot of people in ministry too that are like, what's the deal with CBD? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Is it, is it coming from is it addictive? Like all that. So the way that I like to run things here is to have us all participate in the conversation. So if you're online or if you're here, just love to hear, your thoughts about it. So in my research, I did a little research to start us off, okay? And I'm gonna butcher these pronunciations, all right? So CBD stands for cannabidiol, all right? And it is from, mostly from 2 different kinds of plants. One is the marijuana plant and one is the hemp plant. The one that we know about from marijuana that is the high, that gives us the high from marijuana is THC, okay? And THC is tetrahydrocannabinol, all right? So THC, I'm only gonna say THC from here on, and CBD. So CBD does not give us the same kind of high that THC does, right? It's a different compound. It comes from the same place, but it's a different compound. It is said to reduce anxiety. It is said to boost mood. It is said to relieve pain. It is said to cure epilepsy. It is also said to have an effect on addictions, like chemical addictions. All right, so that's what they're all saying CBD is helpful for. It's curious because it's also sold at like the shoe store and Walmart, and they're sold in the dispensaries here in Colorado, but they're just all over, it's all over the place. It's not just like in a Walgreens where you would get supplements or something like that. It's everywhere. So I think that's part of the curiosity around it. CBD, it does come from hemp and marijuana, but here's the thing. All animals, not all plants, but all animals, all humans have naturally occurring CBD in our bodies, okay? So it's part of how God created us with our neurotransmitters and how they transmit information. And this compound, though it's a little bit different when it's extracted from a plant, the same kind of concept is already naturally occurring in our bodies. And what it does, now here's another thing, I'm not going to try to pronounce this one. CBD increases the production of another neurotransmitter called 2-AG. And what 2-AG does is when there is a synapse that fires and it shoots the electricity through the nerve, it is received by the next nerve. 2-AG then is a backwards inhibitor to the first nerve so that it calms it down. Okay, so you have the nerve firing that says something is happening. It receives to the next nerve, and then this 2-AG goes backwards to bring back equilibrium or homeostasis to the first nerve, okay, or the first synapse. So CBD increases this 2-AG for that to happen. So when you think about it, with anxiety, with pain, with epilepsy, with addictions, those are all, with moods, those are all related to the synaptic firings, okay, and some of the neurological things that happen with chemical addictions and how that affects how our brains work. So when you think about an inhibitor to that, it actually could be a good thing to slow down the addictive neural pathways in order for them to not be as hot and firing constantly. Because the neural pathways are continually firing, they learn to continue to fire in addictions or in epileptic seizures. They continue to fire, and that's why you're having a seizure, rather than being calmed down to slow down. So that is some of what CBD does and is about with regard to the actual chemical compound, okay? And that's why it's naturally occurring in all animals and humans, because we need that calm down effect to all of our synapses. Otherwise, we would be firing all the time, okay? And if you've ever experienced some kind of anxiety attack or panic attack, you know that you're elevated and you know that your body is being affected by what's going on inside. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, you can't think as much, you breathe heavily, right? So you're having this panic attack. It's because those inhibitors are not doing their job. They're not doing the job to slow back down the synapses that are firing, okay? So does that make sense? Okay, any questions about that? Is this new information for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you guys online, feel free to pop in questions as you have them too. I'll try to answer them. So I think that's really remarkable that God created our brains both with the possibility to fire and with something to calm us back down. What happens also is that when we do our breathing techniques or our calming techniques or grounding or mindfulness exercises, those kinds of things, the 2-AG increases. So that's what ends up helping us slow down, okay? So whether it's a compound like CBD or an active experience like a calming technique or mindfulness technique, it helps us slow down because the 2-AG goes up. Okay, so my question as I was looking at this was, so then how is CBD any different than like lavender, chamomile, any other, when I was growing up, my mom would always make me this sleepy time tea from Celestial Seasonings. I don't know if you guys ever had that, but sleepy time tea, what's that?
Still use it.
Still use it? Yeah, we still use it. So I was wondering, like, what is the difference between the CBD and any of those other things that are more generally accepted in our society, right? So again, as I continue to look into this and research into it, I think part of it is that we know that CBD comes from marijuana plants and hemp plants. And so I think in our culture, it's like, ooh, is it somewhere on the edge? Is it somewhere on the edge of acceptable plants for us to use? But again, we use lavender and chamomile. We use caffeine. We use sugar from sugarcane and sugar beets, right? We use these substances for our pleasure or for our well-being, and all of, you know, the pharmacy is originally coming from some kind of plant-based or earth-based kind of thing. So why are we having this response, I think, or question about CBD? Now, I want to be clear. I am not trying to sell CBD. I'm not trying to not sell CBD. I am neutral in my position about it. It's just this curiosity that why all of a sudden when I want to go buy shoelaces, am I being offered CBD oil at the checkout? Okay. Why all of a sudden do I see all these signs on the way to work that CBD is being offered? And usually it's being offered in the same places that marijuana is being offered as well. So it is in local, you know, gas stations and stuff, but right next to my house, there is a CBD depot where they sell CBD oils and stuff like that, as well as marijuana. So it's kind of got a bad rap, mostly because of its cousin, mostly because of where it's coming from. Okay. What's that?
Nothing.
Yeah.
The bad rap because of your cousin. So it's like, that's my existence.
That's my existence. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of guilt by association, I think. So now, another thing that as I began to look into this, most clinical trials of CBD find, and there are very few at this point, most clinical trials of CBD find that it is only effective when you get to 400 milligrams or above, up to like about 1,000 milligrams of CBD. Okay. However, at the shoe store, at the gas station, or even in some of the dispensaries, the CBD that is sold is mostly around 25 milligrams. Okay. So most of what's being on the market right now is the mindset, not the actual chemical. Okay. It is the mindset around CBD rather than any like clinically proven effective dosage for anything to actually help you with anything. So now the dispensaries will have the higher dosages and such, but most of what we'll see on the market is at that 25 milligram versus the clinically effective 400 or above, which is curious. The other thing is that in testing, they found that 70% of what is sold is either higher or lower than the milligrams listed. Okay. So it's not an accurate measurement. It means that it's also not an FDA approved or regulated substance. All right. So anybody can go and get their CBD oil or get their plants and start to extract it and start to sell it without regulation. All right. Which is crazy. Yeah. Okay. So 70% contain more or less. And here's the other thing, 20% contained THC. Okay. So you think,
testing.
Okay.
Work.
Which is the thing, is that people are like, I'm just taking a CBD supplement, or I have pain in my back, so I'm putting some CBD lotion on, and then they have a random test at work and they're showing positive for THC. So it can be really dangerous in that sense. Right. So there's also it's contained pesticides, because it's not organically or ethically grown in that sense. And it can also contain no CBD at all. Okay, it's just a lotion that says CBD and it's nothing at all. All right, so there's, yeah, it's just Jergens. It's just the Dove moisturizer at that point. So that, I think, draws all that other stuff into question. It has some potential positive effects on us, but then because of the guilt by association with its cousin and being unregulated, there's all these other potential dangers that we have with CBD. So does it work? Maybe. There are some tests, there are some clinical studies. They're really, few and far between. It's just now started to be on the market. One estimate is that there's about $500 million of CBD sold in the United States right now. In 5 years, they're estimating that to be 25 billion. Okay. And again, like I said at the beginning, it's the mindset that is being sold rather than the actual substance. Okay. So how did Yes, Kelly Johns from your office just says, did my boss just say she was going to drug test us at work?
It's in our contract, Kelly, we can do it if we suspect. Board members.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, does it work? We don't know. There are some tests. It's a big business. We need to be mindful of it and all that. Is it a danger? It could be. These kinds of things, ingesting THC without intending to, that can be dangerous. It's a lot of money as well. And the other fear that I personally have is that I wouldn't say that it's like a gateway drug, like I would say marijuana is a gateway drug, but I'm afraid that CBD is a gateway for our youth specifically to the gateway drug. That now they're like, well, I had CBD, or I'm taking CBD supplements. What's the difference? And they're not able to kind of sort through or dive into some of the research. Okay, so as I said, coffee, lavender, essential oils, alcohol, all of those are substances that we use generally. CBD could become one of those. I think we just need to be thoughtful and careful about how we go about it in both regulations and making sure that we're kind of aware of what's associated with it. 1 Timothy 5:23 says, stop drinking only water. Use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. Okay, right? So here Paul is telling Timothy, go ahead and use some wine. Use some of what God has created in order to help you with your ailments, right? And wine is one of those things that is in some Christian circles kind of on the edge. So I don't want to either condemn or affirm CBD because we don't know what it could be useful for. And maybe if CBD existed in Paul's time, he would have said, get a little CBD for your illnesses, right? It'll help you, kind of thing. So I just don't know what to think about it. What I do know is that in Genesis, in 1:28-31, God has given us the entirety of the earth, all of the plants and all of the animals for us to rule and to steward, and they are for our benefit, right? They're for our benefit. So there are things that are on the earth that do cause us to lose our faculties and lose our inhibitions. And those are ones obviously Paul directly speaks towards, and throughout the scriptures, God directly speaks towards, like, do not become drunk. I don't think they had meth back then when the Bible was written, but I think he probably would have said something about meth, right? Heroin and cocaine and all those kinds of things. And it's that we are free to use what is ever on the earth, as long as it is within the bounds of staying within our own faculties. So I'm curious also about the Christian reactionary approach to things, right? That guilt by association is that often as Christians, we will tend to go to a much, further degree with something because we don't know about it. We've not done our due diligence and research about it. We tend to stay away from things, which is good. I'm not condemning that, but we're not in the, we don't have a posture of curiosity towards these things. And I think it would be helpful if we as Christians really adopted a posture of curiosity towards all of these things, including things like CBD. Like, what is it about? Where does it come from? What does it do? And really not to bless it or curse it until we fully have an answer. I think far too often we end up cursing something because we just don't know. Okay? So in my work, when I think about CBD, when I think about lavender, when I think about chamomile, when I think about coffee, when I think about alcohol, when I think about CBD, I am far less concerned about the substance itself and far more concerned about what is it the person who is using it looking for from the substance. Okay, and that's where I want to shift into just CBD as a thing, into just why are we going to these things like CBD to help us with our anxiety? Several of my good friends are into the essential oils, and this really hit me at one point when I was like, gosh, I'm feeling a little anxious, and the response was, Well, I have an oil for that. Okay. Anybody use essential oils? Okay. Julie, you use essential oils. Yeah. Again, there's nothing right or wrong with it. But in counseling and in therapy, when I'm talking with clients about medications and they're talking about going to a psychiatrist or a doctor, what I want to be sure is that they go to speak to the doctor and the answer is not, well, I have a pill for that, right? Or I have an oil for that. The pill and the oil can be helpful, but I want to be sure that we always have our orientation to what's going on the inside. Why are you anxious? Why can't you sleep? What are the things that are, why is your blood pressure so high? What is happening on the inside that is manifesting in these symptoms that you're then going to a substance, whatever the substance may be, legal or illegal, to mitigate those feelings that I have on the inside, okay? So one of the things, particularly with CBD, is that I'm afraid that the trend is gonna be, well, I'm just gonna start taking CBD for X, Y, and Z, for my anxiety, for my pain, for whatever, just like anything else. So addictions to anything, whether it's a person, whether it's a process, whether it's a substance, addictions are always ways for me to either kill something in my heart or fill something in my heart. Kill or fill, okay? Where I want to kill some kind of desire, where I want to kill some kind of hope, where I want to kill some kind of feeling, where I want to numb out to the world. I want to kill my stress. I want to kill my anxiety, right? I'm going to go to some addiction. I was at a restaurant a couple of weeks ago and we were talking with the server and found out that she was a believer and was talking to her about life and all those kinds of things. And she said, yeah, well, at 2:00 today, I'm off and I'm just going to go eat my feelings. Right? And it was that I'm going to go to something else, some substance to deal with what's going on inside. We ended up talking about that, obviously. But so to kill my feelings or to fill my emptiness, fill my brokenness, fill my loneliness, right? And it might be the alcohol itself that is being used, right, to fill the loneliness, or it might be the process around the alcohol that is being used to fill the loneliness, right? But there's great community in bars. There's great community in parties. And so if alcohol is a byproduct of that community, well, then I'll use that substance in order to get and fill those things in my life and my heart, right? So addictions are always with something or someone other than God himself. Addiction is always something that I go to for life when we all know that the only one who actually offers us life is God himself, right? So anything other than God himself. So when I'm, wondering about these things, I'm always wondering, like, what are you going to? What about your life, your heart, and your circumstances are you seeking to kill or fill? And that would be a question that I'd wonder both for us as well as for the people that we're, ministering to. When we hear about, even if it is an essential oil or coffee, right? What is underneath that? What is underneath that? So to be addicted means to be attached to something, to be attached to something. And again, other than God. So, and I think, honestly, and I think the reason that CBD is getting such press right now is because we are a people who need to attach. We're in a generation of such connectivity, but all of us, and I don't want to rabbit trail off into social media, we have the greatest sense of connections with people, but the greatest sense of isolation than ever before in history. And so CBD is getting this, I think some press because it's out there now as another way, as a new popular way that if all the other ones that we have so far, if the oils and the caffeine and the sugar and all that haven't worked for you, well, maybe CBD will, right? And we just are a people that need to attach to something. So that's where I feel like it can be really, really dangerous. So if we bring something in from the outside into the inside, maybe the chaos inside will calm down. So I don't know if any of you online or if you here, like, I don't know if you're like me, but whenever I start to feel a little bit of, not a little bit, a significant amount of chaos in my world outside, you know what I go do? Is I organize.
That's what I do.
Okay, anybody else organize? Like, clean the I don't do that. I don't go clean the toilet, but I will organize. I spent a couple hours this morning organizing my calendar. I will organize my room. I will organize my closet. I'll go in and take out all the clothes that I haven't worn in the last year and organize it up, like that kind of thing. It's that if I can organize my external world, I will feel like my internal world is more organized. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you guys do? Right? When you feel like stuff is happening out here, where do you go?
I straighten up just like that.
You straighten up?
The house, yeah,
Okay.
the house, the garage, anything that would appear then more organized and
Yeah.
gives me a sense of peacefulness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my garage is not organized. That's a place that I choose not to go. I just choose to ignore it.
Yeah, me too. I'll organize the house, I won't even touch
Yeah.
the garage.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything else?
Do like a yoga class or exercise, just to, put your mind on something else and, or
Yeah.
have a moment of, where you get to just breathe and away from kids and the mess and the chaos. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's a good way to connect with God too, for being quiet.
Yeah, for sure.
You have young kids.
Yeah.
Just drive somewhere.
Go
Just
drive.
Drive.
Yeah.
Not anywhere in particular.
Yeah.
Like, maybe 1 gallon of milk? Sure, I'll drive to the north end of town and get
Yeah.
1 gallon of milk.
It sounds
Yeah.
Right. 20 cents.
Yeah, I was talking with someone this morning in a meeting, and he's like, I just go west. And here in Colorado, on the Front Range, going west means I just get up into the mountains. Right? I just need to go sit by a tree, go, sit by a rock. I need to go hike a mountain, something like that. I just go west. Right? And as you hear, like, these are not bad things. Right? They're not bad things to organize or to go to yoga, to go for a drive, to do any of these things, right? It's not that those are bad processes. It's that we still have to be attentive to what's going on, right? And those processes might lead us to that and whatever, but I would just say, like, we've got to make sure that we're curious about the deeper things. Like, why am I so unsettled right now? I am going to go to a yoga class to help me center in so that I can address what's going on. I'm going to go organize my garage so that I can address what's going on and feel a little bit of peace in order to truly do that. Great, go do that. And I think CBD could potentially be one of those things. Like, I'm gonna drink some lavender tea to help me calm myself. But if I rely solely on the lavender tea or the CBD oil, that's where it becomes problematic, right? So, yeah, as I'm always afraid of, like, I've got an oil for that, I've got a drug for that, I've got you just need to go, shoot something or whatever to feel better, right? It might actually help you feel better, but if we're not attentive, and I'm afraid that we are training the next generation of people, those that we are ministering to only go to the process or to the substance and not actually do the emotional work of what is below that, right? Because I think we can actually feel some pretty good relief. Going to shoot something, that can feel relieving. Going to organizing something, that can feel relieving. Drinking lavender tea or a cup of coffee can feel relieving. But I don't think we're doing the emotional work or training people in the emotional work to get underneath that. That's where I feel like it can be pretty dangerous. So I'm going to just pause there and open for questions, comments, curiosities that you guys have, reactions to that, other information you have about CBD that I don't have.
It's interesting to me to think of the laws that we've passed to make that legal and what has kept the legislation from regulating that when they've got to be, or they should be in their responsibility, understanding the variance on those things and what ride that can put people on.
Mm-hmm.
They should be acknowledging that, and especially when I think of the huge financial input that is driving this. I mean, we see those places pop up not because somebody doesn't have anything to do, but there is a great financial benefit.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have to regulate it, wow, I mean, that's just a free for all.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was curious how once in the states that have legalized marijuana, there is now regulations around it,
Really.
right? And so there
Not
are
CBD.
and not CBD,
Um,
right? So if you go to, there are different kinds of marijuana, there are different kinds of or strengths, and they're all kind of packaged and labeled and all that kind of stuff. So now there are regulations. They have to be grown in certain places, and the fact that it happens still on the black market is a reality, right? People are still doing that in their backyards, but now it has some regulation to it. I'm always curious about, what requires regulation, because your lavender tea is not regulated.
Yeah.
Right? The amount of coffee I drink today is not regulated, but it is labeled in some psychological disorders, right? It is in our, as counselors, it's in our diagnostic manuals
What
that
is-
caffeine,
Oh, caffeine.
yeah, caffeinated influence. So
Too much causes anxiety.
yeah,
Right.
For some, too
Yeah.
little causes anxiety.
yeah. I mean, I had a client once that he drank 2 liters of Mountain Dew before 9 o'clock in the morning, and then had probably about 15 cups of coffee for the rest of the day. So talk about over caffeinated. This
And
guy was
sugar.
like, and sugar, yeah, like way off the charts. Sometimes he would flip over to Diet Mountain Dew so the sugar wouldn't be so high, because that was a little too much sometimes. Because fake sugar. But that's from like what needs to be regulated, to your point, right? That should be regulated, and you can bet that he's not going to be in a right frame of mind to drive, to go to school, to at the checkout counter. What's he going to be like, with anything? So curious about regulations for sure.
So,
Yeah, Julie.
I have a good question. So how do you find a reputable source to buy CBD? That's
Mhm.
probably one of the reasons I haven't with some chronic illness I'm dealing with, that it seems like it can help a lot with inflammation and helping with a lot of things, especially for people who are dealing with chronic illness. So, but the thing that probably has kept me from, just lack of time to research and figure out what I want to do. But how do you determine what is a reputable source to purchase something from?
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not going to go to the gas station one, but there's
Right.
obviously probably more parameters besides hey, you probably want to look for something between 400 milligrams and 1,000 milligrams.
Mhm.
But other things, maybe organic, so it doesn't have the pesticides and things like that.
Yeah. So in our office here in Fort Collins, I actually sublet one of our rooms to a massage therapist. And that massage therapist uses CBD oil or lotions as part of her therapies, right? So in answer to your question, I would go to somebody like that and ask, where do they get it? Because their business, their reputation, right? And she's not a massage therapist who's in kind of a seedy kind of situation, right? So I would look for somebody who has a reputation and then is using this for their clients. So happy to put you in touch with her and see. But then also, don't go to the gas station, but see if you can go to a place that specializes in that. I actually do think that slowly the Walgreens and Safeway Pharmacy and stuff like that are going to start to carry it, if they don't already, in the pharmacy section versus at the checkout counter, right? That's when you can trust it a little bit more, right? I also think talking to a pharmacist would be someone also that you can go, or a medical professional, your naturopathic doctor or your medical doctor, could potentially have some sources for you, because the industry is booming. Like I said, it's going to go from 500 million to 25 billion in 5 years. That's the estimation. So you better believe that they have sales reps that are coming in to the massage therapists and to the doctors and to the pharmacies to try to sell their wares, right? So they're going through their own process to determine what they're going to let in their store. The ones at the checkout counter, they don't go to the pharmacist, right? But the ones in the pharmacy, they're going to go to the pharmacist. Does that make sense? Good question.
I've heard that there's a company called Joy Organics that's
I've seen them
local,
advertised in
Yeah.
like the Fort Collins magazine.
and I think it has 0 THC. But you know, again, that's like what they say, right? But I think it is
Mhm.
somebody that I think they're local and they say it's 0 THC.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that Timothy verse that you brought up, and then there's also the ones in Corinthians 6:12 and 10:22, I think, if I'm remembering right, where it says, you know, all things are lawful, not all things are beneficial, you know, and so how do
Right.
we balance those things? And how do we, in the things that are healthy to do, you know, you're feeling anxiety, you go out for a run, or you do some of those things. You know, how do we, both ourselves and with those we meet with, not opt God out of the mix
equation.
here is what,
Yeah.
we're happy to.
Yeah. And I would say opt God and opt genuine relationships with real people,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Because God does work through the connections with other
of
humans.
course.
So both of those for sure.
Mhm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on like tending to your own heart. Because, you know, when you were talking about, okay, like I organize when you know, stressed out, or, you know, I have my things like going for runs and
Yep.
doing yard work, like that's super therapeutic. I almost always do yard work on Mondays. It's like just
Yeah.
like it's helpful. Are you saying, so I don't get the sense that you're saying that that's bad to do.
Mhm. Nope.
Does there need to be, I guess what I'm wondering is, does there need to be a step in that process for me as I think about it? Because I don't always have okay, how's your heart, right? I'm just like, oh, I'm stressed, I need to go for a run, or oh, I'm anxious, I need to like read a book for a while and just sort of settle down, or I need to go do yard work, right?
Right.
So I do all those things, but I never like stop and go, well, where's your heart in this? Other than like, oh, my heart's anxious, or my heart's, does there need to be like deeper work done? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. And I think you know the answer to my question. Of course there is, right? Of course there, and in Psalm, you know, the psalmist actually begins to ask his heart, why so downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Put your hope in God, right? So he's actually having this internal dialogue with his own heart. In order to come to a place of discovery and exploration, he asked the Lord to search my heart and know me, know these ways within me, right? So there's this combination of I'm asking my own heart and I'm asking God to ask my heart what's going on in there. So Charlie, you're absolutely right that these processes can be helpful. So go garden, go read, go for a run, go do yoga, go organize. But when that's the only thing that we do, I feel like what will happen is that we will develop a pattern that's the way that I'm going to get out of my anxiety. That's the way that I'm going to deal with stuff, rather than truly asking my heart, what is going on, so that I can actually get to the root rather than just the symptom, right? So I feel like if we go run or go organize and not do that work of asking our hearts, we're only dealing with the top level of what's going on for us. It might feel good to go garden or run or drink a cup of coffee, right? And get us out of the feeling, but ultimately it's not dealing with the sickness.
I also wonder if there might be a distinction to be made between just resting and escaping, right?
That's a great distinction.
You
Yeah.
can just rest in a run when there's like no, you know, pressing anxiety that you're immediately feeling, but you just need to rest for a second or rest for a day and do yard work. You just need to rest to do these things. But yeah, it comes to like, where is your heart at? Are you in a season where it's like you're constantly full of anxiety? Do I need to check, is this substance or is this thing that I'm doing, is it actually restful or is it just escaping the real work that's happening?
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like, you can't make a distinction every single time, like, oh, am I trying to rest right now or am I trying to escape this horrible feeling? Because I know like certain days, like right after a really heavy ministry day, like I'm just burnt out and I just need to go for a drive or go for a run. And there's no like immediate anxiety that I'm trying to like cure or overcome. But then, you know, there's that moment where something makes me angry and I'm like, oh no, I need to go run. It's like, okay, that's trying to deal with this immediate anxiety instead of just resting, you know?
Yeah. And if you need to go run in order to get to rest, like that's okay too. But the run is not the answer. Right? The organizing is not the answer.
I was going to say, you know, I think you have to examine whether the activity is bringing clarity to what it was that, you know, launched you into the activity in the first place.
Right.
And I know for myself, often that truly is the case. It settles me and then it brings clarity even in the middle of the cleaning or the running or whatever it happens to be.
And these are the things that I'm afraid we're not doing well by those that we're ministering to, because we're not teaching that next step. We're not inviting them to that next step. And you said escape or rest. And I would wonder too, if that thing or that process in some way comes out from under your authority and you begin to be under its authority, right? Where I'm not okay if I don't run, right? And it's not just a health thing, but it's like, if I don't get that cup of coffee in the morning, I'm going to have a bad day, right? That means that coffee now has some authority over you, right? And that's the one, you know, that's a sign of addiction, right? Doesn't mean the coffee's bad, doesn't mean the run is bad. It just means that somehow you've shifted underneath its authority. Okay, so Kelly has a question here online. I'm curious as to what is healthier for your physical body, CBD oil versus medication for things like anxiety, chronic pain, depression, etc. Knowing research shows your brain doesn't do well with SSRIs, which is a antidepressant, long term, and can change the chemical makeup. CBD is unregulated as of now, but I'm curious as to what the research will say in the future if it is able to be more regulated as far as THC levels and percentage of actual CBD in the product, with the thought that things like essential oils, lavender, chamomile are healthier for your body if we're going to put CBD in that category. Yeah, I would say, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a medical doctor, but I would say for sure the most raw to the earth materials that we can get, the better that they will be. That's just my opinion, because I feel like God in his infinite wisdom created the earth and all of the animals for our good. And the more that we can stay as raw and as original as possible, the better. That's not to say that medications are not good or can't be helpful. The way I talk about medications with my clients is, you need medication when you feel like you're in a situation, anxiety, depression, right, some kind of PTSD response, something like that, where you feel like you are drowning and you can't get your head above water. Okay, you just feel like I cannot catch a breath. I cannot get my head above water. Medications are like someone throwing you one of those life rings, right? It's to just get your body up so you can get your head above water. It's not going to teach you how to swim. And it's not going to tell you why you got in that water in the first place. So that is the work of therapy. That is the work of being in intimate, connected relationships. That is doing some of that deeper story work, right? That's what that's for. Medication is just to get you to get your head above water. And when it feels like you've learned how to swim, and when it feels like you're actually choosing the waters in which you're swimming, medication no longer is useful. That's kind of how I approach that and think about that. So hopefully, Kelly, that answers your question there. So
I
Good.
heard
Yeah.
something about essential oils that very different than medicine. Like you use a lot at the beginning, like you might do it like every 30 minutes, and then every 2 hours, and then every 6 hours, and you spread it out because it's done some healing in your body, and then you don't need it as often.
Yeah.
Whereas with medication or with alcohol or some of those kinds of things, it's you use a little at the beginning and then you want more and more and more because you build up this tolerance. And I have no idea where CBD would fall in either of those. I'm
Yeah.
curious. I
We
don't
don't
know
know.
enough about it, but
We don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know, and I don't know, but I would venture to guess that because of the brokenness in our hearts, right, and the processes of our bodies, that most substances are, I need a little bit more, I need a little bit more, I need a little bit more to experience the same thing. Think about alcohol, think about marijuana, think about drugs. Like you start with a little and you don't get the same. It's all part of how these synapses are firing, right? And it does something for the synapse, and the same level of drug or whatever it is doesn't do. Your body evolves, it becomes adapted to that, so it doesn't have the same effect. So I don't know. That's yet to be seen with CBD
stuff
oil.
that's not addictive, like somebody took an SSRI, they're going to take a dose, get to the right dose, and stay on it for a period of time. Or Tylenol is not addictive. It doesn't create pain like a painkiller, kind of a narcotic. Yeah, I just have no idea where CBD falls.
The only danger that I feel like with something that is quote unquote not addictive is that the process can become addictive, right? That or the belief structure that I won't be okay without it. And so even those that come to a stabilized level in their SSRI level or medication levels, you know, have stabilized to that place, could they be okay without it? Maybe, right? And I think sometimes we don't try because it's just, I've stabilized in a new place. So that's where I wonder about those things, the processes of it.
Chris, what do you do with a person who has not gotten around to articulating what is going wrong? So when you say, you know, like when we talked about, are you resting or are you escaping? And they go, I'm escaping. And then you say, what are you trying to escape? And they just kind of go, I don't know. Like they can't articulate. They haven't dug in to go, what's the problems?
That's a great question. So for people who've have no sense of what they're trying to escape, okay, I just ask them to develop just before, and like 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, or 30 minutes before. And they might need to work into that. So like 5 minutes before you want to go for that run, can you pause? Just pause. 10 minutes before, what was happening? That brought you to need to go run, okay? Or want to ingest that, you know, take that shot of alcohol, okay? 30 minutes before, what happened then, right? That brought you to the 10 minutes before, that brought you to the 5 minutes before, that brought you to the drink, okay? So try to help them work backwards, because one of the most beautiful parts of humanity is that we have the ability to reflect. No other creature on earth has the ability to reflect. And so I want to call that part of their humanity back out and just reflect on what brought you to this point. So they might not know, well, I'm trying to get away from, you know, the situation with my spouse, so I'm going to go drink. Okay, they might not make that connection, but they can go back and say, okay, what happened 5 minutes before? What happened, 10 minutes before? We had a fight. Okay, and 30 minutes before that, I got home late. Right? So we can start to create the pathways for them, or lay out some of the stepping stones so they know what brought them to the point of needing the drink. So reflection, I think, is helpful. The other part that I think is helpful is to ask them, when in your mind can you go back to the first time that you felt this way? Right? When did you feel like you needed to escape, right? And what that's going to do is that's going to conjure up stories. That's going to bring stories of, well, I needed to escape when my dad got home from work because he was an angry, violent man. So I learned how to escape then, and I'm still escaping today as an adult. Now, they wouldn't say it like that, right, without a lot of conversation, but asking some story-based questions, like when did you first experience the need to numb out, that kind of thing. So those would be some places that I start. Depending on where they are with their faith, I would bring them to, Psalm 42, which is, why so downcast, O my soul? Why so disturbed within me? Can we pause for a second and just ask your soul? Ask the Spirit of God. Ask Jesus himself. Like, what's going on inside of me? I don't know, you know, right? Help me come to that place.
Yeah.
So, okay. Good. Any other questions before we pause? Okay. So my rule is 10 seconds. If you don't speak up in 10 seconds, then we're done. Yeah, we're done. So my hope is that, to kind of bring this to an end, is that whether it's with CBD or anything else, we have a posture of curiosity. And I think that when, in the Christian circles, we often go to that place of judgment before knowledge. And I would ask that we be a people of curiosity with these things. So if somebody that you're working with or whatever talks about, I'm taking CBD supplements, hopefully you can say, tell me more about that, right? What are you taking it for? Rather than that immediate judgment of, oh, you gotta be careful and stop, or whatever. But also have in mind, what is this, is this the gateway to the gateway of something else, right? So, cool. Well, okay, so next month for Frontlines, we are going to be talking about, it's going to be an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about sex buyers and why we at Restoration, why I hold out hope that there is healing for people who are at whatever level of addiction. And I think that would be at the end, one of the top ends of that, sexual addiction. So I'll talk about sexual addiction all the way up to that, and why I even hold out hope for those that are purchasing sex. And some of the work that I do even here in Fort Collins around that with the police department and the DA. So it is an increasing problem all over the board. Not, sex buying for sure, prostitution, but I'm sure all of us are dealing with people who are struggling with different levels of sexual addiction. So that's what we'll be talking about next month.
And that's the 24th.
That would be, yes, the 24th. It's the fourth Thursday of every month.
And that will be where? The location?
I don't remember off the top of my head where that will be.
I
We'll
think
let
it's
you know.
on Strauss Cabinet. I think.
Okay. It might be at Light of the Rockies. So, okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Or November. I don't
I
know.
don't
One
remember.
of those two.
Yeah. I'll let everybody know. So, okay. So I'm going to pause. Thanks, guys, who joined online. This was fun to see a bunch of people online. So thank you for hanging in there and for doing this. If you are online, I'm going to email you just to let me know if this was helpful to do via webcast. So, and it will be available as a recording too, so you can come back to it in the future. All right, so thank you. I am going to pause here.